So, welcome to the VET S.O.S show, brought to you by the Who You Know Network. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. I hope you're ready for some extreme knowledge bombs here. We got a very special guest in Mark Overberg, who is the director of Army retirement. He's going to be sharing with us a ton of information here. So we want to make sure that we get right to the questions here as quickly as we can. We want to continue to thank everybody for streaming and pairing their channels with us to continue to help us get the word out on the show. As always, I'm here with my partner, Mark. Mark, how you doing today?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to rep your city, rep your post, rep your duty station. Let us know where you are tuning in from. I'm going to give you some shout outs.
Outstanding. Absolutely. So Mark Overberg started his Army career as an all-source intelligence analyst, which is one of the reasons why I love you, because you know I'm an intel analyst. So definitely an upstanding person here. He then went on to become an armor officer. During his distinguished career, Mark had been stationed in Germany and the U.S., deployed to South Florida in support of Hurricane Andrew recovery operations, Haiti in support of Operation Uphold Democracy, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan before ending his career assigned to the Army G1. Mark is currently the Director of Army Retirement Services, where he is responsible for all Army retirement service policies and oversight of the program's delivery to 185,000 soldiers of all three components with 17 plus years of service and 1.25 million retired soldiers and surviving spouses, as well as strategic level program communication. That is not only impressive, but a much needed service. And we're so proud to have you on here, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Shawn, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience.
We're real happy to have you on here, knowing that you are the man. You are the one that helps us make that transition, and just real curious to hear about the not only the retirement planning process itself, but things in post-retirement. And I know you're going to tip us off to a little bit of that as we go. So you caught me right before we started with that statistic. So I want to bring that up again. You were saying that only 17% retire from the Army, and DoD wide, it's about 19%.
Yeah, that's correct. The average across the Army is 17%. And if you break it out based off officer and enlisted, it's only about 10% of enlisted stay to retirement and about 30% of officers.
Wow. That seems amazing to me, because like I'm going through the process right now. And as you go through it, you're there with 100 people. You just sort of make the assumption that there are tons of people doing it. That number is amazing.
Well, there are actually a ton of people. From active duty and AGR, about 20,000 per year retire from the Army. And then from the Guard and Reserve in the drilling capacity, about 10,000 a year transition to what we call the gray area. So about 30,000 per year total.
Okay. 30,000. Yeah, it's just that number just still catches me. It seems really low, but I mean,
yeah.
70%.
Yeah. It's surprising, the numbers, and when you think in terms of retirement, how much the military pays out for retired pay. That's one of the other things. It's an eye catcher. It's about $22 billion a year in retired pay and the survivor benefit plan.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, as you prep for this whole thing for retirement, from the soldier standpoint, I always hear different numbers. So one number is 12 months out, you got to do TAP and do all that. Then you hear at 18 years, 24 months out is when you can start doing it. And then I've also heard that you should be doing it 36 months, if not from the day you enlist or join the military. You should be planning your retirement. So what is the recommendation that we really should be following when it comes to the retirement?
Well, when I retired back in 2007, the guidance was start your planning 4 months out. That was really not enough time to do planning because I took 90 days of terminal leave. And over the years, we've figured out that it, it's quite uh, it's quite a challenge. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of decisions, a bit of research to do. And so we've been slowly moving it to the left. So right now, what I tell soldiers is 36 months out, you need to start planning. Now, if you want to start before that, that's even better. But 36 months out is when you need to start figuring out some of the big things like when do I actually want to, pencil in a date? Where do I want to do it? Where do I want to retire to? And who are the people who are going to help me do that? So at the 36-month mark, you should be able to start penciling in those things and figuring out and starting having discussions with your family, because that's going to absolutely impact what you do. So 36 months for retirement. I was just in touch with Human Resources Command yesterday. And so they used to say 12 months out for TAP. You have to take TAP 12 months out. And then they, about a year ago, started saying 12 to 18 months. For retiring service members now, the Army is saying you can start TAP 36 months out.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a new change. And for us, so one of the key things that people confuse is everybody knows about TAP because TAP is a law and it gets tracked very closely. Not everybody understands that there's a different thing you have to do if you're retiring. So TAP is for everybody, whether you're leaving after 1 or 2 terms of service or you're leaving after 30 years, you have to do TAP. Even if you're general officers, they have to do TAP. But the retirement planning seminar is something different. And that's something that everybody who's retiring has to do. And we urge them to do it 24 to 36 months out, because that's what opens your eyes to the things that you've got to do and the decisions and the plans you have to make.
No, that's a great point. Now, did that 36-month, has that been pushed out? Is in a policy yet, or?
It has not been pushed out. How I knew about it is one of the resources retirement planning resources that we created about 4 years ago is the Army's retirement planning newsletter called Change of Mission. And up until now, I've been the editor of it, and I just handed it off to a new employee. And she sent me the October edition for review. One of the articles in there comes from Human Resources Command, and it's talking about TAP, and that's where they put the 24 to 36 months out for taking TAP if you're retiring. So yeah, that is coming out. That's maybe a little. I'm stealing some of their thunder, but
Breaking news here. Breaking news. That's because when you're active duty, you hear all kinds of different rumors, if you will, about things that are changing coming down the pipe, and sometimes as it goes through each echelon, by the time you actually learn about it, could be forever. Because I know 2 years ago or a year ago there was a rumor that they were going to push the retirement. You could submit your retirement 2 years out instead of 1 year. I'm not going to put you on the spot. You don't have to talk about that one, but
no. Actually, it's not official yet. We are about to start a pilot where service members will be required to submit. This is Army policy that we're talking about. Service members will be required to submit for retirement at least 12 months out, but no more than 24 months out. So moving the time frame from 9 to 12 to 12 to 24 months out, that'll allow soldiers to, if they know retirement is what where they're going to go, and they don't want to do more than that, they can submit. Once we implement this, it'll start in January, but once we implement it, they'll be able to put in their request for retirement 24 months out, and that should prevent them from PCSing and start to put them on the glide path to retirement.
That's going to be huge. There's quite a few people I met that fell into the window of having a PCS because it was a month or two before they were able to submit, and um, so yeah, that's a big one. That'll make
Are
huge.
Mark, are there changes coming down the pipeline to the TAP program and some of the skill sets that they're teaching that are related to transition? Some of the tactical pieces, like not just resume, but more of the maybe to phrase it, the who you know of it and the networking side. Is that becoming more of a focus for the TAP program?
Well, I have to be careful here. I am the Army policy guy, but for retirement, not for transition. So
Okay.
the Army policy guy for transition actually resides at Human Resources Command. So I got to be careful not to speak about stuff in his lane because I'm not necessarily the subject matter expert and definitely not the policy proponent. So I'm afraid I can't answer that one.
Understand.
We get around to playing Stump and Mark here.
Yeah.
We talked about it yesterday. I don't
Well,
get to play that game.
yes.
So, one of the things that I've heard it referred to quite a bit is that retirement is a process, not just an event. So we all have, some sort of retirement event, where we have the family and everything, a little ceremony, whether it's the official on post ceremony or your own private thing. But why do we hear it referred to as a process?
Well, that's absolutely a truism. If the member thinks about retirement as an event, then they're foregoing all of that preparation, all that planning, and they walk out and don't have a smooth landing in retirement. So the to take the idea that it's a process means I have to do some preparation. I have to think through some things. It's not as simple as I think at first, and so that's why it's a 36-month process right now. There's a lot of details that people probably the three things, when talking about retirement planning, was probably three things that people trip up on. The first one is not starting soon enough. Some people think it's just out processing. No, it's not. It's about changing careers. It's about changing a way of life that you've had for 20 to 30 years. So starting early, and a lot of that planning is mental, gearing yourself up to doing something different in a different climate, a different atmosphere. So not starting early enough is one of the big ones. Underestimating the amount of thought and work that's going to take. This is not out processing. There is much more involved. And number three, not involving the family. Involving the spouse and the kids who are going to be impacted by it is a key point. On that thought, I urge service members to take their spouses as much as possible to the transition assistance program classes, to the retirement planning seminar, because number one, that's two sets of ears. And that when somebody says something to you and your spouse, he or she hears one thing and you hear something different. And it's a partnership in marriage, and so you divide up chores and things, so maybe one person is the one who pays the bills and so manages the budget. Maybe one is the person who manages the health care in the family, especially if you have children. And so the other one, often that's the service member, doesn't manage the health care in the family and doesn't think to ask questions that the spouse will do. So
That's huge.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop a bomb on that one, because again, in one of the previous shows, we talk about career transformation being financial transition, right? And that's actually the industry that I'm in. So one of my questions is, sounds like they address that, and I'm prior service, not retired service, so I didn't go through that and get that information. But what kind of, I guess, pieces of that program on the financial guidance side is the Army currently offering? Can you talk a little bit more about that? And then what are they looking to maybe offer? Some of the things that they're looking to help with on the financial side of the transition.
Sure. So in 2018, well, it was a 2016 law, but it got implemented the 1st of January 2018. Congress implemented 2 new things in terms of retirement and financial preparation. The first one was the blended retirement system, and we could talk for 30 minutes on that by itself. But that's a huge culture change. It causes service members to be responsible for a portion of their retirement. It's not, all paid by the government. You have to contribute to a portion of it. So that forces them to start thinking about that in retirement as soon as they come in. So that's a big change. The other big part of that law was the directive for the services to provide financial counseling at touch points throughout the career, from the time the service member comes in to the time they retire. Those are some touch points like that would be promotions, PCSs, having a child, getting married, and then of course in retirement planning. One of the big tools that I urge service members who are planning for retirement to do, and they can do this at any point, but certainly you want to do it around 3 years out. Go to another website that I run called the My Army Benefits website. At the My Army Benefits website, there is a retirement calculator. And when you go to that, it'll ask you for your CAC card. So you put the CAC card in, and what it does is first, of course, validate you are who you say you are. And then it reaches over into the Army personnel system, which we're in the process of changing over to IPSA now. But it'll pull pertinent data from your personnel file into the calculator. So you don't have to know what your deems date is or what that even is. Your pay entry basic date, your basic active service date. It pulls all that information into the calculator. So all you have to do is say, here's the date I want to retire. It'll know, based off of your deems date, which of the 4 retired pay plans you're under. So it'll know which formulas to use. And then it'll calculate your retired pay for you. And if you're not committed to a certain date, and you can say, all right, how about this date? And then you can play what if games. What if I stay an extra year? What's that going to do for my retired pay? And so that's one of the financial tools that we have for people who are retiring.
Yeah, it's great to see that there are some counseling opportunities there. The problem's the same, right? Whether it's in the military or civilian sector, people just aren't getting help, right? Or enough help. And so we see this all the time, right, in the civilian sector, because we help tons of career transition folks in the civilian sector. And there's a false sense of security, I think. And it sounds like that while the program is great, this new program, starting 2018, and I had heard about that, where there's going to be some skin in the game, right, on the service members. Now it's not just all done in the pension for them, but that was a component of the military, even when I was in, right, because that program wasn't here. I was in the 90s, and I got no financial counseling. I mean, I'll just be honest. I spent every dime I made because I was young and dumb and just, had that city paycheck coming in. But I think a lot of people prior to this new program have just had kind of a false sense of security, where they know that they've got this pension coming in, but there's no real financial counseling or guidance, even just some on maybe the basic budgeting, right? And so once you get into career transition as a military member, right, that paycheck is coming in still. So, but you've got a whole new set of maybe expenses, liabilities that you're addressing, and you've got even transition with the move, finding a new job, some of those expenses. I think that that's important. And then tied in with that, you also had mentioned benefits, right? Because your benefits do change as well. Health, your family, what they qualify for and can get to a certain extent, and how that processes work, because you're not on post or base anymore, right? And so all of that changes too. So hopefully that's part of that program too, and I'm guessing it probably is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the financial counselors, they have normal accreditations, certified financial planner, ACH. There's different accreditations, but they're all, and they typically work out of the Army Community Service office. But as far as the benefits goes, that's another part of the My Army Benefits website. If you go into the benefits library there, it'll tell you based off of what type of service if you're active duty, if you're a National Guardsman, if you're a retired, it'll tell you what your federal and your state benefits are. So you're absolutely right. There's a big change when you retire. And that's one of the things where you have to do a little bit of homework and figure it out. Healthcare is a big one. There's some significant changes for healthcare when you retire. And people just assume that what they have in service will continue afterwards, even in retirement. But that's not necessarily true. So that's part of the homework that people need to do.
Paired with this conversation, then, how has that blended system been working? Right, there's been a couple years, so people have been transitioning, and it's so new, right, that maybe the pudding isn't there, so we don't see the proof yet. But tell me kind of where that stands, what your evaluation of that program has been so far.
So yeah, it was started in 2018. So it's only been, a little over 4 years. But the interesting thing is that every new soldier coming in comes in under the BRS, as we call it. Right now for Army active duty, about 60% of all soldiers now are under that system. Most of the senior folks are not. They're still under what we call the high 3. Some may be under the redux. There's only a couple still under the final pay. So there's a bit of a change. So we don't know a lot of detail. During that year of 2018, service members who had less than 12 years of service could opt into the new blended retirement system. But they're not going to start retiring until around 2026. So we're not seeing the retirement end of the impact yet. But it's surprising to people the number of service members that are under the new system already.
And it's a voluntary system, right? You can opt to save or not, or is it mandatory?
Great question. So first off, in that year of 2018, it was voluntary for people with less than 12 years of service to opt in. People with more than 12 years of service could not. They stayed under the high 3 system. But once they're in, so let's take real quick a new soldier coming in, the way it's set up, and this is taken off of civilian experience. The military has copied what works in the civilian area. A new private coming in is automatically set up to put 5% of his base pay into the thrift savings plan. And it's set in a fund. It's one of the life cycle funds. So it's a mixture of stocks and bonds. And that will gradually change automatically over time as he ages. So it's set up for a age appropriate life cycle fund. So the younger folks will have something that's a life cycle 2060 or 2065 when they plan to retire eventually. And so they can change that 5% down to 0 if they want. The law will change. If they change it to 0, the law actually sets it back to 5% the following year. So they would have to, it's trying to, set people on the right path towards retirement. And so, yeah, there is some flexibility. They can change things.
Okay. Looks like Mark got kicked out somehow. So we have come down to the end of our first segment. The good thing is, though, we got Mark Overberg coming back for a second segment to talk more about the retirement process. We just dwelled a little bit on the pre-retirement type stuff, and we could honestly probably do 40 episodes with you talking about both pre and post retirement. So much goes into it. If you had to give one tip as we close this episode, one tip for service members, Army service members preparing for retirement, what would that one tip be?
Well, it's a combination. Start early in order to do your homework.
I would 100% agree with that. I was so happy I started early, and hopefully the seniors are talking to their juniors already about the whole process. But we're going to go ahead and close this out. Mark, appreciate you so much coming on talking about this piece. We'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the VET S.O.S show. And remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.